Sinjuri, nsemmilkom u nixtieqilkom lajt it-tajjeb. Ninsabu illum ġol Belt Valletta ġejna St. Paul's Pro-Cathedral u issa nerġgħu nintaqgħu ma' Alice Middleton li hija Mart iċ-Chancellor ta' din il-Knisja, dan il-Katedral sabiħ Father David Wright. U għalhekk satorina riċetta li jagħmlu ħafna l-Ingilterra f'dan iż-żmien. Thank you, Alice, so much.
Well, welcome
Once
back.
again.
Yes,
And
welcome back.
for inviting me to tea another
Absolutely,
time.
help yourself.
What are we going to share with our audience today?
Well, because of the season we're in at the moment, I thought I would show you how I decorate my simnel cake, which is a traditional cake eaten either on Mothering Sunday, which is a Sunday partway through Lent, or on Easter Day. So it's a very traditional light fruit cake with a layer of marzipan, and it's decorated with marzipan.
So you've got all your ingredients?
I have,
ready,
yes.
as
Shall I do
usual?
the big reveal?
Absolutely, absolutely
So-
lovely. So tell us something about the cake before you start decorating it. I see it's got a layer of...
It has a layer of marzipan in it. I made the cake yesterday because it needs to be absolutely cold before you start decorating it. And in the cake there are raisins, currants, candied peel, golden sultanas and glacé cherries. And all those ingredients I bought locally from my favourite spice shop in Valletta.
It seems to me that it's similar to a Christmas cake, but perhaps lighter?
It is lighter, yes, although it's still very moist because it has that layer of marzipan in the middle that really keeps the moisture in. And it takes a long time to cook in the oven. It's not a huge cake, but it takes 2 hours in the oven because it's cooked at quite a low temperature.
What about the recipe? Is it one of these easy recipes where you put everything in together? Or?
Not quite. The first thing you have to do is boil the fruit in freshly squeezed orange juice. And that's just to plump it up, which helps to keep it nice and moist. And then you cream the butter and sugar, and then you throw everything else in at that point.
So I can imagine a very moist cake.
Yes, yes, and it's lightly spiced as well. It has mixed spice in, so it smells beautiful when it's cooking.
How long can you keep it for once you've baked it?
Probably about a week or so, not as long as a Christmas cake. You can keep those for quite a while. Though to be honest, it never lasts a week.
And do you bake it with the layer of marzipan inside, or do you add it after?
No, you bake it with the marzipan inside, which is why it can sometimes look a little bit sort of, it looks quite glossy actually, where the marzipan has been on the side of the baking tin.
I can imagine that's going to be so delicious.
Yes. Wow. Maybe you can try some later.
And you bake them for the church, right?
Yes.
Also.
Yes, I made 2 for the cathedral, which we had on Mothering Sunday. And I've made this one for the congregation that meets on Gozo.
Lovely. So, do you want to explain to us how you're going to decorate the cake?
Yes, of course, I can show you as well if you like. So the first thing we need to do to decorate the cake is we need to roll out a disc of almond paste to put on the top. And when you're rolling out pastry, obviously you sprinkle some flour on the surface. We don't want flour on the marzipan, so we use icing sugar. And icing sugar in Malta, obviously it gets nice and lumpy because it's so humid. So I just, I've sieved it already. I've got my ball of marzipan ready, which I just need to make sure is nice and warm on the outside. And you might notice I've got some more bits of marzipan. I'll talk about those in a minute. The important thing is we don't want the marzipan to stick because then it doesn't look too nice. I've got my mum's technique, hopefully this will work, for rolling out a circle, whereby you just squash it gently with the rolling pin, and then moving from the middle, you just roll outwards. So if you roll from one side to the other, you end up with a really strange shape. So rolling it this way, and it doesn't matter if it's a bit raggy around the edges because we're going to cut it using the base of the baking tin as a template. On this mat, I have actually got some circles marked, but I always tend to use the baking tin as a guide. And it does smell good. Leaning over it, I can really smell the spices in the cake, which is nice. I'll just put a bit more sugar on because it's sticking a little bit. I don't know if, I know some people have marble rolling pins. They might be better. So you can see it's not a perfect circle, but it's not bad. And we'll just see if it's big enough yet. Not quite, I'll just do a little bit more. It doesn't need to be too thick because obviously when you come to cut it, the idea it's a sort of vehicle for carrying the decoration on the top. So that should be big enough. Perfect. So we'll just cut round the edge to make our circle. And this is where I always used to hang around if my mum was doing things like this because I'd be after the offcuts. I think probably children everywhere do that sort of thing. Now what I always do, because my mum did, was I just press around the edge with a fork just to make a little pattern. It's not obligatory, but I think it just makes it look a bit more interesting. So just quickly around the edge with the fork. Some people might crimp it or just leave it plain. Doesn't really matter what we do. And I have a confession to make, Leia. I don't make my own marzipan.
Okay.
That will be my job for next year, maybe, to learn how to make marzipan.
It's quite time consuming.
Yeah.
And I think you never get such a smooth paste, really.
I've never tried making it, and
I have, but
you have.
It's not as smooth,
right?
Really. And I imagine because you're decorating something, probably this is a better option.
Yes, you do want it nice and smooth. Yep. Now the next thing we need to do is fix the marzipan on top of the cake, and the recipes normally say to heat up apricot jam. But we don't eat jam particularly, so I've got some gozo honey here that I'm going to use instead. It just needs to be something sticky where the flavour goes with the cake. So
I love this gozo honey on an English cake. I just love it.
Why not? It's that mixture of cultures which I think is really nice. So we need quite a bit on, and you can see that I'm not an artist because I just kind of daub things on. But the idea is to make the top of the cake sticky so that the marzipan won't slide off, because that then wouldn't look very nice. And at the top of the cake, because it's got fruit in and it's been in, it was in the oven for a while, it's not totally smooth. Although it does rise nice and evenly. It doesn't have the big dome on the top, which some cakes can have. So it's just dabbing the honey on just to make sure that it's nicely covered. I think I've got everything there. It looks nice and shiny. And you can tell how sticky it is because there's bits of cake stuck to the brush. I'll just pop that there. Okay, so now I'll put the marzipan on the top, and you can see it's a little bit ruffled around the edges. I'll just brush some of the sugar off the back, and then I need to get it lined up nice and carefully on the cake. Because once it's on, you can't really take it off because it'll pull bits of cake off.
That's perfect.
And then you just gently smooth it down. So that looks good enough to me.
Perfect.
Excellent.
It's really like pastry. It looks like pastry.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just you roll it out with icing sugar. Now the next bit is to put the fancy, well, it's not that fancy, to put the symbolic decoration on, if you like.
Can we speak a bit about the symbolic part?
Yes. So, because this is eaten in Lent or on Easter Day, it's decorated with marzipan balls. I've got 6.
The same
same
paste?
marzipan, the same paste, so it can be homemade. And traditionally, we use the natural coloured marzipan, not the white or the green. I remember being surprised in the shop the first time when I asked for marzipan, and Johan said, "Would you like natural or green?" It was like, why would I buy green marzipan? And then I saw all the wonderful things that you can make, that you make here with green marzipan.
Cassata Sicilian.
Absolutely, yes. So we have 12 of them because they represent, well, this is controversial putting 12 on, for the 12 apostles.
Right, so you have 12 balls.
12 balls to represent the 12 apostles. And it's a bit controversial because some people put 11 balls on.
Absolutely, yes.
Because Judas, of course, was one of the apostles and he betrayed Jesus. But my mum, who was very lovely, as you know,
and inclusive.
She felt sorry for Judas because she said somebody had to betray Jesus at the Last Supper. And so she thought, really, he actually had quite an important job to do. So she always put 12 balls on, and so do I. And nobody's complained because actually one of the things when I serve it, people always say, "Oh, can you make sure I've got some of the marzipan ball as well?" Because it's a nice big.
So you've got 12 apostles, but no place for Jesus on the scale.
No, he's not around at this point. So it's very simple. You just make 12 equally sized balls and then you place them around the cake. Another reason why 12 is good is because you can then place them on like the numbers on a clock. So it's quite easy. If you do 11, it takes a bit more messing around. And you just stick them on, you dab them in the honey. You only need a little bit because you don't want to slide off. And then you just decorate the cake.
And you push them down a bit.
Just push them down a bit, yeah. You don't want too much honey. The first time I made one, I put too much on and they slid off, which...
Runny honey.
Very, yes. But of course, this time of year, with the honey, I've had to melt it slightly in the microwave because it was getting a bit hard. So I always put them just on the inside of the bit that's been decorated with the fork.
So does this mean it's a 12 portion cake?
I suppose in theory it does, but on Mothering Sunday at the cathedral, I think I cut it into about 40 pieces.
Yes, because
there
quite
were lots
heavy.
of people.
And it's quite heavy also.
And also it's to be honest, it's quite an expensive cake to make.
With all the almonds and
the
marzipan.
With the almonds and the marzipan. So if I'd made enough for everybody to have, 12 slides, I'd have probably had to have made about 7 or 8 cakes. And that is quite a lot. So I'm nearly done. Okay, so the next thing I need to do is brown the top. Traditional, well, the recipes always say put it under a grill, but I'm a big fan of a blowtorch. Do you have a blowtorch in your kitchen?
Yes.
Yeah, they're great. There we go. This is a nice one. And we just want the tops of the balls to brown a little. It just makes it look a bit more interesting, I think. Some recipes say that you can brush it with egg and then brown it, but you don't need to. And I'm always a bit cautious because I'm never sure that the egg actually cooks. So I'm not that keen on giving people raw egg. And this gives quite a nice smell. And then you just go around the edge and just brown it. If you do it under the grill, it is very much hit and miss how it browns.
It's uneven, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Whereas here...
That's just so beautiful.
Yeah, and it smells lovely as well. So I'll just There we go.
The Lord is my strength and song. And He has become my salvation. I will rejoice, for the Lord is the strength of my life. Whom shall I fear? Why should I be afraid? He is my God, and forever I'll sing His praise. The Lord is my strength and song, and He has become my salvation. I will
Alice, it's always so nice to come here. So nice to
thank
see you
you.
doing your recipes.
Good. Well, as you know, I do enjoy baking.
Yes, you enjoy cooking.
I do
all right.
generally cook it, yes.
Yes. Father David's very lucky, I think. Last time we came to visit you, it was Christmas.
Absolutely.
And you were telling us about your son and daughter-in-law expecting their first child. So you
Yes.
now give us the exciting news.
Well, the exciting news is that I now have a baby granddaughter who was born yesterday, which is very exciting. David and I were actually out at a party last night, and when the party finished, we noticed we got some missed calls from our son, and we thought that's strange. So just as we were walking out, I phoned him up and he told us the baby had been born. So it
a
was
month early, right?
3 weeks.
3 weeks early.
3 weeks
Yes,
early, yes.
yes.
But she's a good size. She's doing really well. Mum's doing really well. So it's really exciting.
Congratulations.
Thank you very
And you still have
much.
to find out the name of the baby.
We do, yes. They've decided, I mean, they didn't want to know the gender of the baby before it was born, which was fine. And they also haven't shared any names before the baby was born, and they now want to share the name when we meet the baby, which is quite cute, actually.
Lovely,
I think.
lovely. Your cooking, coming back to your cooking and your baking today, is this another of your mum's recipes?
I know my mum made simnel cakes, but I couldn't find in any of her recipe books a recipe for it. So this is one off, I think it's off the BBC Good Food, who, if I don't know how to make something, they're my kind of go-to website to find
Absolutely,
recipes.
yes.
Although I do have lots of recipe books. I have plenty of them. But as I say, my mum made at least one simnel cake every year.
Lovely. I can't wait to taste it, actually, which we're going to do very soon.
Yes.
What about Easter? What does Easter mean to you?
For me, it's the combination of things, because it's the beginning of spring, it's the new life, you get the snowdrops, the daffodils, the flowers blooming. But alongside that, obviously, the most important thing, because it's Easter, is the resurrection of Jesus. So on Good Friday, you've had the really sombre, quiet, meditative services of the vigil, really. And that is quite gloomy, which I think is right, because obviously, you know, he was crucified, a horrible death, put in a tomb. Then Easter Saturday, not much happens, because he's in the tomb and you're just waiting. But then Easter morning, you've got the sort of joy of the resurrection. And you can only begin to imagine what it must have been like for the women who went to the tomb. So the first people to witness the resurrection were women, which I think is really important. And you can only begin to imagine what it must have been like for them to go to tend to the body and then find that he'd gone. It must have been extraordinary. And I think that extraordinariness kind of filters through the liturgy on Easter morning.
speak to you, I'm always very impressed with your faith.
Ah,
Yes.
yeah, thank you.
Yes. How would you compare your traditions in the Church of England with what you see in Easter in Malta?
Well, Easter in Malta is very exciting. I think the most dramatic thing we've ever witnessed here is the running of the statue of the resurrected Jesus through the streets. And that's just nothing like anything in England at all. I mean, you have the joy, and you know, many churches in England, you have incense and you have flowers back in church and you sing the Gloria again. But that sort of energy and vitality of running the risen Lord through the streets of the town or the village is just amazing. And again, that comes after the sombre processions that you see on Good Friday.
Yes. It's more joyous, isn't it?
It is. Yes. Oh, it is so joyous. And I think Anglicans, it is joyful, but it's a little bit more sedate, perhaps.
But I think that also reflects on the cultures of the different countries.
Absolutely.
Yes, a Mediterranean country, we're
Yes.
more, I think,
Yes.
we're more emotional, perhaps.
Yeah, and quite excitable about things, which is fantastic. And it's one of the things we do love about Malta.
Coming back to your recipe, similarities again. You've used almond paste.
Yes.
Most of the Maltese Easter recipes have almonds or almond paste with them.
That's right.
Have you noticed that? Do you think this is for any reason? Was there any history?
I'm not sure what the history will be with the use of almonds, because it's quite interesting actually, because when I lived in England, I used to make figoli every Easter.
Right.
And I used to make mini ones and give them to my staff at school. So the sort of week before we broke up for Easter at school, I was busy making figoli, which was great fun. Now I live in Malta, of course, I don't need to make figoli actually. So I make other things. But yeah, it is interesting that both cuisines use almonds, maybe because it's richness, or because also it can pad out using flour. And the simnel cake is made, because the word simnel comes from the Latin word for fine white flour, which of course in the Middle Ages, when simnel cakes first started, it was very expensive because people used to use coarser brown flour. And that's what makes a simnel cake special, because it's made with that.
So it was a
fine white
luxury.
flour. It was a luxury, that's right. And I guess almonds were luxury goods as well. So it is.
And I do think that this cake is still associated with luxury food, because, I mean, if you walk past Fortnum's in London,
Yes.
in the shop windows, you see simnel cakes now.
Yes. Yes, and it is a very rich cake. I mean, each cake has 250 grams of butter in. You know, it's not a healthy thing to eat at all. It is very luxurious, which again is probably why you eat it either at Easter, when the Lenten fasting has finished, or on Mothering Sunday, which is the also known as Refreshment Sunday, where you're allowed a little bit of a break from the Lenten fasting.
What activities do you have planned in the cathedral after Easter? I mean, Easter, like you're saying, is like, it's a new beginning after Easter.
It is.
So what do you have planned?
Well, on Easter Eve, we have a lighting of the Easter fire outside when it's nice and dark, and that's always very dramatic, especially if it's windy. You have to keep an eye on the priest to make sure his robes don't catch on fire. And that's the sort of first Easter service with the lighting of the Easter fire. And then, of course, Easter morning, you've got the excitement of the service. Lots of incense. We do like incense here. And all the joyous Easter songs and hymns that we sing within church. And as I said before as well, during Lent we don't sing the Gloria, we don't say that at all, because the focus of the Mass is more penitential. But then Easter morning we sing the Gloria, which is
And
wonderful.
any activities after Easter?
Well, traditionally, the priest always takes the week after Easter off.
Because he's been so busy.
Because he's been so busy, because all through Holy Week there are daily masses, daily services, there's 3 hours of devotion on Good Friday, Maundy Thursday there's a vigil, we do a mass in the evening, and then the altars are stripped, so it's just down to the bare wood or stone, depending on what your altar's made of. So yeah, it's a really busy week. So traditionally, Anglican priests are on holiday for the week after Easter. And in fact, we'll be going over to England to
see your
the granddaughter, yes, which will be wonderful.
Lovely. I'm always interested to listen to your views, Alice. If we look at the geopolitical climate right now, how do you think that's impacting people's faith?
I think it can be a real test of people's faith. Because as a Christian, you should believe in loving other people. You know, even if people are different, you should respect them. You should love them. You don't necessarily have to agree with them, obviously. But I think it's a very difficult time, and I think with conflict being focused in the Middle East, around Israel, the Holy Land, Palestine, that really brings it home how fragile peace is in the world. And in fact, there isn't peace there at the moment. There's even less peace than there was before.
In fact, you cancelled a trip to Israel.
I did, yes. I was due to visit Jerusalem with 2 friends. We've been planning it for a long time. We'd got everything was booked. And then the Saturday before we're due to fly out, that was when Iran was bombed and all flights were cancelled. So we didn't actually have to make a decision to cancel ourselves. It was taken out of our hands, which is a cause of great sadness because it was a pilgrimage for us. You know, we're going to visit holy sites. We'd planned to visit a refugee camp and another place which was a centre of peace and reconciliation where Christians, Jews and Muslims came together, worked together, sang together, ate together, and we couldn't go. But we will one day. We certainly plan on going at some point when things have settled down.
Thank you very much once again for welcoming us to your home here in Valletta.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.